Hey, good morning and welcome back to another edition of LinkedIn Live. This is my show. I call it Social Media Pie because I bring on inspiring people to inform and educate you. And very, very excited because today I have a fellow entrepreneur, somebody else who has left corporate, started their own business, and I'm very excited for the conversation today with Nancy Maurer. Nancy, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You're excited. I'm excited. Ever since we booked this, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I've been counting down to it. Got my coffee.
Awesome. Good.
Let's yeah.
There we go.
I love what you're doing, and I love the thoughtful comments so I'm ready. Let's do this.
Awesome. Well, this will be a fun conversation. And hey, I want to just take a moment to welcome anybody who might be watching us. And I used to only live stream to 2 networks, Facebook and LinkedIn, but I'm on 3 networks now. StreamYard has opened a 3rd access point for us. So we're live streaming right now on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, and we are on YouTube. So wherever you are watching, if you're watching live, please leave a comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching us from. I'm in Macomb County in Metro Detroit. I'm in my home office in Fraser, Michigan. Nancy, where are you at today?
I am in Oakland County, right next door to you, in Metro Detroit, in Rochester Hills, in my living room.
Awesome. And we're in a kind of a crazy place right now with COVID. Everybody is pretty much working from home. Sometimes when I have people on the show, they're like, I'm watching this from my couch, or I'm watching from my back porch, or I'm watching this from the kitchen table or the bedroom. So I always like to kind of ask the question, because we can't see who's watching until you identify by leaving a comment. And that also helps me to know that the live stream is actually working. So if you guys are watching, I would really, really, really appreciate it if you could leave a comment below right now and just let us know that you're watching the show. And periodically, as we go throughout the conversation here today, I'm actually going to bring some of your comments up on screen. I'll give you some shout outs. So Tisha Hammond is watching us. You can see on her symbol, she's watching us from YouTube. We also have Bobby, who's watching us from Commerce, Michigan on Facebook. And Chris is watching us on Facebook as well. And hopefully we'll get some folks from LinkedIn leaving some comments a little bit later on here today. So Nancy, you and I have known each other for a little while, and I was asking you just before we joined the show, I'm like, do you remember where we met in person? And can you help to refresh my memory on that again?
I do. It was when we were both still in our sort of corporate or W-2 jobs. Yeah. I was the executive director of Leadership Oakland, a community leadership development nonprofit. You were at Walsh College, and we met at a conference and just started to discuss leadership, and however many years later, here we are, both entrepreneurs.
Here we are. And who would have known back in that day, Nancy? I think it was the Troy Chamber Nonprofit Conference, if I'm not mistaken.
It
who
was.
Would have known that would have been a path for us? I mean, I was never a I'm going to leave corporate type of person. I admired those people. And I think you shared that was kind of similar for you. Admired those people, but maybe you never really thought that was a path as a possibility for you.
Absolutely. I had a lot of really great organizational careers. I pivoted my career 6 times over the course of it. And I always kind of had that nudge that I wanted to go out on my own, but could always find a number of buts as to why. Yeah, but I only have one income. Yeah, but the timing is not right. Yeah, but I have a really great job. Until last year, when I really felt, I took a leap of faith because I really felt the call to go out and help people navigate their lives, their careers, and the twists and turns that come along with it. And, who knew less than a year into it that a pandemic would hit and I would end up really having to once again walk the talk. I thought I had a PhD level experience in transitions before the pandemic, but wow, this is a good one.
Yeah. So guys, we're going to be having a conversation today about thriving in times of transition. And whenever I book people for my show, I always say, what do you want to talk about? And Nancy came back and said, hey, let's talk about this thriving in times of transition. And wow, are we in a crazy time of transition right now? The whole world has changed in such a short period of time. And I'm really looking forward to jumping into this conversation and hearing from Nancy. Before we do that, though, Nancy, why don't you, if you could take a few minutes, describe for us a little bit more about what you're doing now. You talked a little bit about the path that you got there, and then we'll talk about thriving in times of transition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am the founder, owner, CEO, head IT, business development, everything for Sonder Haven, which is my personal and leadership coaching adventure that as I mentioned, I started just a little bit over a year ago, and I'm having a great time. As I mentioned, also, I have gone through 6 different career transitions, from communications to leadership development to running a nonprofit, and thought, I can do this. I can run my own coaching firm, and yeah, it's been an adventure, and I love it.
That's awesome. And was this something that was like in the back of your head for a while? I mean, was it like, maybe this is a possibility? I mean, was this a someday dream for you, or was it always like the hypothetical?
It was a someday dream. Mm-hmm. It was always there. This sort of burning desire to have the quote freedom, and then also the challenge to see if I really could do this. I'm a big believer in taking a look at self and others imposed limitations, and then smashing the heck out of them. and so, that was one thing left to check off. And I really couldn't, I figured that, I really realized that if I got to the end of my life and I looked back and I hadn't tried this, mm-hmm. I would have lived a life with a big regret. Yeah. So here I am.
And for so many people, in kind of kicking this conversation off, when they go through a period of significant transition, whether it is, an organizational restructuring, due to COVID or something else, other life circumstances have pulled them back out of their corporate job to take care of, maybe young children as we're raising them, or, on the flip side of that, aging parents, taking care of family members that are requiring more of our time. Something has happened that has caused a transition to occur, and it gives you a point of pause, right, to kind of reflect upon this. So as we get into the conversation here today about thriving in times of transition, Nancy, tell me a little bit about why this is such a passionate topic for you, and why you chose this as a conversation for today.
Well, it goes back also to just my passion of reining in those self-limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. Sometimes they're others limiting. We were told something when we were in grade school, and we've carried that our entire lives. And that's where that passion really stems from. And just through the transitions that I'm an insanely curious person. So I'm always wanting to know the meaning behind something. And as I have gone through my life, I've always looked at any time that I was in a transition. And while I didn't navigate them perfectly, I don't think we ever navigate them completely perfectly. Each one has been a wealth of information in how to navigate the next one a little bit more effectively. And a good friend of mine calls me a human card catalog that helps people. I love it. A ton of information in this head and experience. And I just really want to share that with people and help them through their own individual circumstances. And that's what really, I always wanted to have that career. And don't get me wrong, I had some fantastic positions, worked for some fantastic, but I always wanted that one where I woke up in the morning and went, yes. And then at the end of the day, I was consistently what I call a good tired, which great. Is, I left everything out in the field today, and I can rest easy.
I love it. And when you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you and I were sharing this a little bit in the pre-call. It's not all roses all the time, but you are definitely in control of it. And it's not for the faint of heart, is it? Working on your own.
It is not. It is not. There have been something. Fortunately, I have had a good crew of support around me before embarking on this and continue to grow that crew of support. I love being around interesting people who support me, but also challenge me to be better. Yeah. And there have been some accountability partners that working for yourself, you got to have that motivation. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to sometimes just kind of say, "Oh, I'm my own boss. I think I'll take today off." And while that's good, sometimes no, you just have to sit there and push through the setting up the accounting system, and God love all the accountants out there.
Yeah, you get an appreciation for what you're good at and what your capabilities are, and it can be a little bit humbling too. And I agree with you. I'm not an accountant. I eventually had to move from an Excel spreadsheet for my accounting to QuickBooks, and I tried to learn QuickBooks, and I was struggling, and I ended up finding a QuickBooks coach, somebody to help me kind of learn through the process. But then you start to learn, what you can outsource, and you learn things along the way too, right? So let's move into this conversation now. So folks that are watching right now, there's probably some people watching right now that are going through a serious times of transition, and they saw this title, Thriving in Times of Transition, and they may be feeling a bit down on their luck or not very positive or optimistic about the future. And what advice do you offer them if they're looking to kind of shift that whole mindset and approach to the point where they can be thriving in this time?
Well, I realize that thriving in times of transition sounds a little oxymoronic, like how can you possibly do that? And I'll admit, I was one of those skeptics that when I would hear, joy in the midst of pain, I would be, how does that work? Well, then again, being insanely curious, I started to really delve into it. And to thrive in a time of transition isn't to negate what's going on, the difficulties that are happening. Far from it. It is the opportunity to, one, acknowledge that. I refer to it as being a realistic optimist. The reality of what's going on, but then you choose whether it's going to make you bitter or whether it's going to make you better.
Oh, I like that.
Those are all different series of steps that you can go through. And a lot of it does start with mindset. Again, I created a 3-part process for me. I'm the used to be the queen of worst case scenarios. And that's where my mind kind of goes automatically. And so I created sort of a 3-step process, and I call it name it, tame it, and then reframe it.
I like
that kind of keeps the anxiety and worst case scenarios at bay.
I love it. So that's something as you were dealing with anxiety, did you say? Name it,
reframe
I did.
I did. Yes.
Again, is it claim it, name it, reframe it? What was it again?
It is claim it, or name it, tame it, and reframe it.
Okay, love it. I'm going to put that up on screen for people. So that's dealing with times of anxiety when you're feeling like you're out of control. The situation's a bit out of control. You have no control over it, or what's that?
Or fear, dealing with fear, or any type of emotion that just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I maintain that almost any emotion that is negative can be traced back to the roots of fear. And fear has its place. It really does. It originated back, a gazillion years ago to protect us. So fear means well.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible decision maker.
Yeah, it's there to lead us away from dangerous situations, but it can also prevent us from moving to positive situations, right? Because
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I say that I tame it, because then that's putting fear in its proper place and looking at the perspective of the long game, or the ultimate goal. Fear gets a vote, but it doesn't fear gets a voice, but it doesn't get the ultimate vote.
Yeah, it's not the driver. It might be a passenger in your car, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we've got people that are watching that may be going through these circumstances right now, and you're talking about, how to address those situations. So how do you, you're taking them through this first step of the process, which is, addressing what those concerns are and reframing it. What's next in that process?
In reframing it, in the reframing part is where we look at what is that next logical step. And it can be something so incredibly small, but it is something that can move them forward in a positive way. So sometimes it is just as simple as putting a reminder in front of you.
Yeah.
that you got this.
Oh, I love it.
You got this. And looking at that and saying, okay, I got this. And when we look at going through like the reframing, we look at what about this? A lot of times when people are going through a transition, particularly a job transition that they did not elect themselves to go through, there's the fear says, I'm never going to get a job. We're in a recession. I'm over 50. Nobody hires over 50. All of that head trash. I advocate, and I do it myself every day. Take that trash out every day and look at what's really going on. Are people getting, nobody's getting a job in the recession?
Not true.
Not a fact. There are jobs out there. People are getting jobs. Nobody's going to hire anybody over 50. Yeah, they're hiring people over 50. I call it looking for the bright spots in the midst of the mess. It is, where is that one small thing that you can grab onto and then push it just a little bit up that hill?
I would like to offer something too for those job seekers that are over 50 thinking about making a change, because I hear this from people that are in career transition. I'm never going to find anything. Nobody's going to hire me, but I'm not ready to retire yet. I've still got a lot of good here. And they're worried about age discrimination, things like that. And sometimes I feel like that hesitancy comes out in their communications or lack of communications, being active on LinkedIn or things like that. And I like to think about it this way. If you lead with the age as a negative or as a something holding you back, that's going to come out. Whereas the analogy I like to use is like if you hold something out to somebody and you say, smell this bowl of milk. Does it smell sour? As opposed to holding the same bowl out and go, look at this bowl of yogurt. Isn't this absolutely amazing? And they're both sour milk. They are. It's just you framed it differently. So for the experienced job seekers, you are an experienced job seeker. And what do you have to lead with? You know what you want. You're not some kid who's going to flake out and maybe come in, maybe not, leave the job a month down the line. You're going to commit to working for the company. So like leading with the positive is like leading with the check out this bowl of yogurt. I mean, this is an experienced bowl of milk here we're talking about, but look at all the great attributes that yogurt has to offer, right? What are your thoughts on that? Is that an approach you use?
Absolutely. Words matter.
Yeah.
The words we use to describe ourselves, the words that we use to talk about our situation. Yeah. Again, realistic optimist, not Pollyanna here, but they matter. And I can geek out on you in like 5 seconds about all of the research about what just saying and reframing the positivity of your words does to the brain.
Yeah. So instead of someone saying, I'm never going to find a job because I'm over 50 and I'm in a recession right now or COVID's happening, what should they be saying, Nancy? What's your advice to them?
I can't wait to see what opportunities are out there for someone with my vast experience.
Love it.
That company is going to be lucky to get me. Just don't go, to swing the pendulum the other way and get like super arrogant, but confident. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because I bet I could take any of the, the LinkedIn profiles or the resumes of the people watching here and look back and go, wow, you did that.
Right.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're just, as you're seeing the same information, but you're seeing it through a different perspective. And sometimes it's hard for us when we're in a period of transition. And guys, if you're just joining us today, we're talking about thriving in times of transition. If you are in that period of transition, to Nancy's point, all that negative headspace can get to you, the negativity, I'm never going to find a job, and those thoughts of things like that. But other people might look at their perspectives and that same perspective and say, wow, Nancy, this is awesome because you have a chance to take a step back and think about where do you want to go next? What makes you happy? And you get to take a break from work. How lucky are you to be able to do that? And it might put a smile on your face and go, you're right. I can be a little bit more selective at this point, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes I'll get, well, Nancy, you don't understand my situation. Yeah. You don't know what I am going through. No, I don't. Mm-hmm. I don't know everybody's specific situation, but I do know that on any given day, our brains tend to go more toward the negativity bias, and we process way more negative thoughts on a given day than positive ones. But any of this is a skill. This whole thought process, it's a skill. It definitely is. And one of my favorite books is Option B by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. And I love Adam Grant. He's just amazing. But it talks about resiliency and how resiliency is a muscle and it's a skill. And it starts with Sheryl Sandberg's when her husband passed away on a treadmill while they were on vacation in Mexico, and she was bemoaning the situation, rightly so, very tragic grief situation, and how I wish Dave were here. I wish Dave were here. And I think it was her brother-in-law said, option A is not available at this time.
Right.
So let's go kick the bleep out of option B.
Yeah. And that's devastating. I mean, that was like, I remember reading about that, and it was an accidental situation. It was just a fluke. And it was like, how could you ever imagine something like that can happen? And he was young and he was healthy. He was on a treadmill. He was working out when it happened. And it's devastating, but you can get stuck into that moment and not be able to move on because the fear just freezes you completely. And you start replaying, what if I'd walked in the room and helped? And what if we had done this? And what if it was, you can't play that what if game, right?
Right. You can't play the what if game, and holding on to a lot of the expectations of what should have been, what could have been. So often I see this and I have to check myself on this all the time as we're navigating the pandemic, and holding tightly of what used to be. If only it could go back to what used to be. And so often we hold so tightly to those expectations or what used to be that we miss the opportunity of what could be going forward.
Yeah, the possibilities. I love that. And you have such a positive mindset, Nancy. Are you always a positive person? I feel like if I looked around your room right now, you showed us one sign, and I feel like if I looked around the room, there'd be like inspirational posters, and there's like puppies and kittens in the background playing, and there's a coffee machine over here and a fluffy couch. Is that true? Is that the world you live in? Happiness? And
No. Not at all. Oh yes, I mean the posters and everything. They're there as reminders, as reinforcement all of the time. No, I talk about anxiety quite a bit because I don't remember a world without my world without anxiety, and I don't say that that'll evoke sometimes thoughts of, oh, I'm sorry, and I'm not. I finally made peace with anxiety, naming it. It's A+, which pretty much was how I lived my life for, the first half of it. And it's my superpower and it's my kryptonite. So I put the mechanisms and the processes in place to rein that in and to check it so it didn't hold me back. So I could use it as a superpower and not the kryptonite. And I have to say that the one of the times that I got a performance review, actually the one time that I got a performance review that was less than stellar, I was referred to as negative. Again, words matter. And my intent was, I'm looking out for the client. I was working in public relations consulting at the time. I was like, I'm just looking out for the client's best interest, and I'm just telling it to them straight. Right. And they were like, you're coming across negative.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's your perspective. I have a perspective, and those are different perspectives, right?
Right. And I was told then by my mentor that perception is the reality for the person holding the perception. And if you want to change that perception, it's up to you to change it. Now, I'm not saying that we, bend over backwards to change the perceptions of some people, especially those of us who speak and open ourselves up to a lot of public opinion. Right. Choose which voices are you're going to take the feedback from, and graciously thank the rest for their opinion.
Yeah. And coming back to this whole conversation too of thriving in times of transition, I feel like sometimes too, these really challenging times can be very soul opening and revealing of morals and values. And, I mean, I've had conversations with people about leadership during times of transition. And I remember at one point I had a conversation with I'm not even going to call this person a leader. I'm going to call this a manager, who there was a problem that happened, and they literally shaking their finger at me said, "Whose fault is it? I want to know whose head is on the line for this." And they were looking for me to name a member of my team. And I said, you know what? If anyone is responsible, it is me, because I lead this department, and I'm not going to give you the name of an individual person, because this was an error. This was not something the person intended to do. People are human beings. So rather than focus on the fault of the person who did this, it was not intention of that person. Let's focus on what do we need to do to right this situation and move forward. And I chose to hold my head up high, and I really learned something about myself in that conversation. It revealed to me what this person was as a manager, not as a leader. But it also revealed to me where I need to kind of always reset my moral compass pointing towards it's the right thing. It's not, I could have thrown that person's head under the bus, whatever, and then moved up in the organization. But I was like, no, that's not me. And that's not the type of person I am. But we can always make those decisions, right? And going back to your point of figuring out what your voice is and what you believe in, that can help you to kind of reassess and figure out where you want to go.
Oh, absolutely. And what we're seeing now is a prime opportunity to really delve into what our individual values are. Yeah. Whenever I'm working with somebody, or somebody comes to me with advice, particularly in the career direction, we do a values exercise first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it'll be kind of like, well, why are you having me do this? Yeah. Because your values are going to lead you to the right opportunities.
So are there public resources that folks that are watching can use to go through this values exercise, Nancy, or is this something on your website, or is this something you only make available to clients?
Well, actually,
half of people.
you can go to you can Google values assessments. There are a lot of them. Mm-hmm. There are a ton of public resources on things like that you can have. And yes, it will be available on my website when we're in the midst of moving it over into a full-blown website. So
okay, awesome. But in the meantime, I love that tip. Go into Google and just type in values assessment, and you can probably find a variety of free tools that are out there. And I love that approach too of and I hear what you're saying. Like, you might do this exercise with people and they're like, wait, why are we doing this when I asked you about that? Because it all comes down to values. What's important to you? Who are you as a human being? Who are you as an individual? Who is you as a leader, as a manager, or wherever you're going in your career, right? Your values are really important there.
Absolutely. And you'll find a much better match if you are a job seeker with organizational culture too, when you know your own values and the type of person you want to work for and the type of organization you want to work for.
That's a really good point. And as we were talking earlier too about, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Being a consultant is not for everyone. But you and I both agreed we love it. Even during the times that we're in right now, I mean, we're controlling our own paychecks, and our paychecks have, definitely been challenged these past couple of months. But I don't know about you, Nancy, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love where I'm at right now. I am so grateful that the universe nudged me forward into where I'm at right now. And I feel like you feel the same way too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am so incredibly grateful. Again, that's another choice too, to be grateful in the midst of this, because things were going one way on March 10th or whatever for me. And by March 17th, everything had completely shifted. And the gratitude and just the commitment to being resilient and working through the tough stuff, I would not trade this for the world. As challenging as it's been the past couple of months.
Yeah. It's definitely been a road, that we've been on. And I sometimes I'm with my kids and we'll be driving around in the car and in the beginning, I used to joke with my son, I'm like, it feels like it's Christmas Day. Like every time you drive out here, all the parking lots are empty and there's no people. And, it's starting to open up a little bit more now, but it was eerie. And we would joke about, do you remember times before this happened? And I would tell him, for me, I kind of do, but not. It's kind of like when you become a parent, you really can't remember what the time is like before having a child, because your life is so consumed by this major change. And it's the same when we are in times of transition. You know, we can, it's really hard to think about what it was like before, but that's okay.
Yes.
Because for many of us, the challenges that we go through help us to learn more about ourselves. And I don't know about you, Nancy, but the challenges I've gone through in my career, I'm grateful for everything that happened and the order that it happened and the way things, you know, everything, because of the fact that some of that is what propels me today to be successful at what I'm at and what I'm doing for my business. I love all the experiences, you know, the education, the events, everything that I've gone through, because it's uniquely positioned to who I am today. And it's helped to fill up my toolbox with skills along the way too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. Every position elimination, I faced 2 in my career. Every challenge, just uniquely, and in the moment, I couldn't see it. Now I do have a deep trust in it and a deep faith in it, because we've all survived 100% of the challenges that life has thrown our way so far. Right. So our odds are pretty good that we're going to make it through this one too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to start to change gears here. We're going to open this up to audience conversation here. And if you guys do have any specific questions you'd like to ask Nancy, feel free to jot them in. We're talking today about thriving in times of transition. So if you're going through a major transition and you're looking for resources or help or advice, you know, feel free to drop a comment to Nancy below. And one of the themes we've talked about so far is this, you know, being in career transition. And I want to invite those of you who are watching right now to help us to think about other phrases other than saying I am unemployed. What other phrases have you heard of that are being used that are positive ways of phrasing this career transition you're going through? And it could be in between successes. That's one, right, Nancy? What's another phrase you could use rather than saying unemployed? What's another phrase, Nancy, that you might offer?
Besides being in transition, and then there's always the, you know, seeking new on to my new adventure.
There you go.
Investigating my next adventure.
Yeah. And
that's got a positive momentum to it.
I love it. That's good. And I've heard people say I'm on hiatus right now. You know, hiatus reminds me of like a college professor that's taking like a summer break before, you know, deciding to teach again. But on hiatus, you're taking a pause in your career as you're kind of thinking about where to go next. In between successes, I'm not sure if you heard or used that one, Nancy, from folks you've worked with.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so it's all in framing. And again, if you're watching, if you're going through a transition, you know, maybe you have other advice to offer. You know, maybe there's other books that you have read that you'd like to jot into the comments below. Whether you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts on there. And we're doing this live right now, but you may be watching this in the playback later on. So if you're watching this in the playback, still leave those comments and resources in there, because you never know when that book might help someone to move forward. And Nancy, I know you're probably a reader, right? Do you read a lot of books?
Oh my gosh. I could read from the moment I wake up to the moment I shut my eyes and be blissfully happy. Yes, I am a reader.
And you mentioned one book earlier. What other books would you recommend as resources for folks that might be going through a transition right now?
Anything by Brenda Brown is great on going through a transition. She's probably my go-to. I like Adam Grant. He talks a lot, and his podcast is fantastic on work life. Those are probably my 2 go-tos. For introverts, anything by Susan Cain. Brenda, I know you and I are both fellow introverts, even though our presence on things like this might suggest otherwise. And there are just a number of resources out there. So if anybody wants to shoot me a LinkedIn message or anything, I have this sort of personal principle that I always try to link anybody who reaches out with me to at least one connection or one resource to help them with whatever they might be facing. So yeah.
All right. So check that out. Yeah, so we have a couple of folks that have dropped in comments, and I always like to give a little bit of a delay between the time I say leave a comment below and then waiting, because it takes about 20 seconds from the time I say it for it to go live on screen. And then it might take you another 10 or 15 seconds to think about something to type in and reply back. So there's another maybe minute or so delay. And earlier I said, what other words and phrases do we use to describe when we're unemployed? Open to new opportunities, John. I think that's a great phrase to use. So when you're talking, when you're introducing yourself, you don't need to say I'm unemployed, I've been laid off from XYZ. You'd say I'm currently open to new opportunities. I'm looking for this type of a job title in this industry. You may find yourself, like me or Nancy, going, well, I was looking for my next job, I actually started exploring consulting. And that being open to new opportunities also, in my mind, prepped me to be open to consulting, to staying on my own, and to staying independent. And then Greg had replied back. Greg, I'm guessing this might be a book called Get a Job in 60 Seconds. I'm not familiar with it, but since he put it in quotation marks, I'm assuming it's either a podcast or a book. It's some type of a resource that folks might be able to read. So Greg, if you could clarify for me, is that a book, or what is that you're referring to there? And Phil is watching, and Phil agrees with your sentiment, Nancy. We have survived 100% of the challenges thrown our way so far, right? Because we're still here. We're still standing. And there was another comment from Phil earlier who really liked this, two sides of the same coin. So identifying some of those challenges is kind of understanding they can be both your superpower and your kryptonite in terms of the approach and the orientation, I guess, of those words and phrases that are in there. So very good. So Nancy, as we start to kind of move to, complete our conversation here today, what I'd like to do is give you a few moments for any kind of final advice you'd like to offer people who might be going through a period of transition right now, how they can kind of shift that mindset, or any resources that you'd like to share with people, or kind of parting words or shout outs or anything you'd like to give to people.
Okay. Well, first of all, what you're going through in transition, even if it is a good transition, a wedding, a baby, there's stress involved, and there's some tension involved, and that's real. That's normal. That's nobody, especially and at this time, is killing it or has all of the answers. So you are not alone, first of all. Second of all, you're far more capable than this moment in time might feel. And I always try to keep 4 things in mind every day. Something that I am grateful for, an opportunity to recharge, and that may be as little as 5 minutes for some people. Honestly, we take care of our phones, I think, better than we take care of ourselves someday. We at least plug them in every day. I mentioned taking out the head trash every day. So what in your head is not helpful in helping you through this time of transition? And then connection. Yeah, absolutely. Connection, connecting with somebody every single day, whether it's by phone, by text, by LinkedIn message, or whatever. Those are really key to thriving in times of transition.
Yeah, I love it. And every time I plug my phone in now, Nancy, I'm going to think of you, because we recharge our phone every single day. But how often do you hear people saying, like, I'm going to use fitness just as an example. I don't have time to take care of myself. I don't have to, like, you can get out for a walk. Like I started using on my iPhone. I'm probably like the last person that knew this, but there's a health app that's like on your phone. Oh yeah, you guys, and you can like literally pull up the health app and it tells you how many steps you've walked that day. So if you go for a walk around your block, on the first day, it might be 300 steps. And then the second day, go a little bit higher and you might go to 400 steps. And then by the end of the week, you might be walking 5,000 steps. But you should recharge your phone. Why aren't you recharging yourself? I love that sentiment. And Nancy, I feel like there's so many inspirational quotes and isms and things that are coming out of you. I feel like you could be an author. Have you thought about writing a book? Are you working on one yet? Because I feel like there's something there.
No, never say never, because then the universe, God, whatever you might believe in, all or nothing, conspires. Because I always said I would never write a book.
Yeah.
And that theme has been coming up over and over and over again recently with people asking if I'm going to write a book. So Probably.
There's something, and that might be the book title, Never Say Never, right?
Exactly.
I think about people that write books, and you don't have to think about it's a 3,000 page novel. I've seen books that are almost like booklets. They're
Right.
you know, shorter, and it could be inspirational quotes or isms or things. I just feel like you've got a lot of great advice to offer, Nancy, and if you wrote a book, I would buy it. I just want to kind of throw that on the table. So,
well, thank you.
So as we start to kind of wrap the conversation here today, Nancy, I'm going to pull up your LinkedIn profile up on screen. And I want to encourage you guys to take a moment to visit Nancy's profile. Now, Nancy, are you open to accepting invitations from people that are watching the session here today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And what I would encourage you guys to do is if you do happen to visit Nancy's profile and you invite her to connect, mention that you watched her on today's LinkedIn Live, mention something from the interview that resonated with you. If there was some inspiration or advice or otherwise that Nancy shared with you, make sure that you mention that in the invitation to connect. That's a little LinkedIn strategy tip. When you include a personal note, you're going to increase the likelihood that that person's going to accept your LinkedIn invitation. So awesome, Nancy. Well, it was really just such a pleasure chatting with you today. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, and like you said, it was like probably 6 to 8 weeks ago when we finally got it on the books to schedule it and set up the session today. So I just really want to thank you for sharing your advice with all of us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everything that you are doing. You have been just a light to a lot of people, and that's why I like to hang out with people like you.
We surround ourselves with positive people, don't we, Nancy? That's what we do.
Exactly. It's how we survive all of the transition.
That's awesome. So as we wrap here today, I just want to remind you guys too, is after you leave watching the video, if you could please go back to the video and click share and share it with your network. You never know when the messages that we are sharing with you here today, the advice that Nancy's offering here today, might help to reach somebody who needs it at this very moment. So by clicking to share, you're helping to kind of spread the word and share it forward. And then do go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe, and you can join my VIP email list where you'll get notifications of future LinkedIn Live interviews and also my upcoming events and webinar series. So that's it for us today, Nancy. So what's on your agenda the rest of the day? Anything exciting for you today?
I've got website copy to review and write, and that's the fun part for me.
Building is fun. So those that are watching, if you're self-employed, you'll know the journey to launching your first website. It's very, very exciting. When you get the first site done and up, you feel really good about things, and then over time, you're like, you might tweak and modify. And I'm at the point, Nancy, I've been about 4 years into my website right now, and I'm starting to think about kind of a refresh on it. And now it's work. It's not quite as exciting as the building part of it, but it's definitely part of the journey. So I look forward to seeing your website updates and watching your progress on your business.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. We'll hopefully be back to life normal here soon. But in the meantime, stay safe and stay healthy. And thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of the week. Take care.